And we're back with Theodore Postol, former advisor to the Chief of Naval Operations, MIT professor, talking about the ever-present dangers of global nuclear conflict. Tad, welcome back to the show. Now, you wrote that there is a lack of quality stuff in the American nuclear forces. Are you saying the nuclear arsenal is not being looked after properly or isn't safe?
Well, I think there are very serious problems with the nuclear arsenal at the current time. Basically, what is going on is there is a catastrophic falling of morale among the troops. And this is not hard to understand, and in fact is to some degree, well, I think to a high level, predictable. The reason is that the nuclear forces had an enormously high status in American military organizations for a long time. At the end of the Cold War, there was a giant change in the status accorded to the U.S. military forces that were doing nuclear weapons control. The net result of that is that younger officers who are seeking advancement in their career and who are more talented and more upwardly mobile, more promotable, did not want to choose to go into the nuclear forces. So the net result was you got people of less capability and less motivation populating the forces. And this has been a real problem. A second aspect of this problem is that the interest in the American Pentagon in maintaining the current forces at a proper level has not been as high as it should have been. And so modernization does not take place when it should. Now, let me give you an example. If you have computers that are extremely old, in our case, these computers are in some cases 40 or 50 years old, which is a very long time in computer technology. Now, the advantage of the older computers is that you know what you have. The problem with newer computers is there's more, when you're moving over to a newer system, there's always a danger created by moving over to a newer system because things are unpredictable at some level.
Is that why you guys are sticking to the old computers?
I can't explain why that's happening. I think it would be very wise to actually modernize these systems. And they are modernizing them in some ways, but they're modernizing them in ways that are, in my view, not helpful. Let me give you an example. They modify the computer navigation system on our Minuteman intercontinental ballistic missiles so that we can change the targets that we shoot at more rapidly and hold more targets, be able to select targets in Russia or other places more quickly and select more targets. Well, that's only useful if you're planning to fight and win a nuclear war. If you think that by moving the targets on one missile to take advantage of some damage you've already done somewhere else, like you would your artillery in a conventional war, if you think that is a good idea, the way it looks to other people, for example, Russian military planners, it looks like you're trying to prepare to fight and win a nuclear war against Russia.
But
now, the Russian military planner...
Is it even possible to win a nuclear war? Is there such thing as winning a nuclear war?
Of course, it's not possible to win a nuclear war. There's no outcome that is that you can predict associated with the facts of nuclear weapons that would lead to any definition that is at all meaningful of winning a nuclear war. The problem is, if you have an adversary, you're a military person, you're evaluating the actions of the other adversary, and you see the adversary doing things that look like they believe that they can fight and win, it makes you concerned it raises concerns that they might actually believe that, or in a crisis, they might actually exercise options created by these technical changes. So it's a dangerous double-edged sword.
Well, Russia recently announced 40 new ballistic missiles to boost its military arsenal. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg called the move unjustified, destabilizing and dangerous. Now, in light of this American nuclear rearmament we're talking about, do you think it's unjustified?
I think it's unjustified from a technical point of view. From a political point of view, I have no real judgment, but I can see how the political leadership in Russia believes that it has to respond to what it sees as American continued encroachment and planning to intimidate. Whether that's the intent of the United States or not, I have no way of knowing. But I can understand why they think that such an action makes sense. From a purely technical point of view, it in no way enhances Russia's security, and it could detract from it because of an American overreaction.
Also, remember NATO's plans for a missile defense shield in Europe, where they were also supported by the U.S. and its allies. It was supposed to be a protection against a possible Iran nuclear program. Now, a deal with Iran is in place, a deal that, as you say, has unprecedented verification measures. Why is NATO still going forward with these plans?
I'm not a I'm more of a technical than a political person, but I don't want to make fake claims that I am unsophisticated politically.
Sure, but you surely have your opinions and observations on that. I mean, it's a huge topic that we're all discussing.
I think it's going forward because the leadership of the United States has domestic, again, I want to underscore, domestic political, not international, political commitments to doing missile defense. The Congress is deeply committed to it. I think the big defense companies that do the work want to keep their contracts, and the American Congress is strongly influenced by the ability of these companies to influence elections through their money. I think the president has not behaved has not shown leadership in this particular area. He has backed away from his original skepticism, which was well justified, about the value of these missile defenses in terms of their technical capability. Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, but as you say, the domestic policies usually play out internally. They play out to be foreign policies. In this case, does Russia have evidence to believe it's not a security threat for it?
I would say that the Russian military, the informed military, the technically well-informed military, have to understand that the American missile defense is not viable. That is to say, it does not have any capability. However, I want to underscore, however, they cannot treat this missile defense as if it has no capability. This is because they do not know what will happen next. The United States has vast industrial power, vast wealth, has shown that it is more than able to engage in irrational military activities, and the Russian military cannot be assured that the United States won't make some kinds of changes in some unforeseen future scenario to this missile defense. So you can have a missile defense like the Americans have, which technically speaking is a joke. I want to underscore, it's a technical joke in terms of what it can do. But the Russian military has almost no choice but to treat this as if it's a serious concern. So you get the worst of both worlds, even from the American point of view. A missile defense that doesn't work, but is treated by the Russian side as if it works.
Ted, we just have time for one more question.
Convoluted?
No, it sounds
Okay.
pretty simple to me. I don't know why people up there don't understand it.
Okay.
Now, states that embark on a nuclear weapons program,
You'd be amazed what they don't understand. I'm
so
sorry.
listen, so states that embark on a nuclear weapons program,
Excuse me.
they actually do it because they feel it's the only way to ensure their security. Can you say they're wrong? I mean, look at Libya. It gave up its nuclear weapons, and in the end, there was little to stop a NATO bombing campaign in 2011. We just have 1 more minute left for this question.
Well, I think it's a double-edged sword, and it depends on who you are and your circumstance. Unfortunately, and I'm not comfortable saying this, I want to be clear, this is not a comfortable thing to say. If I were in the situation of some nuclear states, I would not give up my nuclear weapons. In the case of other nuclear states, I think not only is it a good idea to give up your nuclear weapons, but in fact, you shouldn't get them. Let me give you an example. If I were Japanese, I would not want to have nuclear weapons. The reason is I'm under the protection of the United States, and if I get nuclear weapons, it will cause me to be a target of the Chinese. It will cause the South Koreans to become extremely concerned to the point that they might react in a bad way, and my overall security situation will be worse. But if I'm alone and I think I need nuclear weapons, for example, if I'm Russia and the Americans have a nuclear monopoly, I would want nuclear weapons because I'm not dependent on another nuclear power to offset the American threat. So it's a political judgment, not a technical one.
Thanks, Ted. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have, but thanks a lot for this very interesting and sometimes scary insight into the world of nuclear power game. We were talking to Theodore Postol, former advisor to the U.S. Chief of Naval Operations, professor of technology and international security at MIT, nuclear expert, and we're talking on the current state of nuclear arsenals across the world and the ominous possibility of a nuclear catastrophe. That's it for this edition of Sophie&Co. I'll see you next time.
Thank you very much for having me.